Hey team, welcome back to another episode of the Strength Game Podcast. I'm your host, Nick O'Brien, and this is episode number 151. The Strength Game is a weekly podcast dedicated to discussing all things physical culture, with the coaches, athletes, iron enthusiasts, and experts deeply embedded in the strength game on both sides of the profession, both as coaches and as competitive athletes. I want to thank everyone who has liked, shared, commented, everyone who has supported, subscribed to the show, and continues to listen. All that support continues to help us bring on expert guests and highlight more individuals in the strength game, just like our guest today. Also want to thank our sponsors. Samson Equipment provides first-class weight rooms and has earned an exceptional reputation of providing the finest quality, design, and customer service. Being a direct manufacturer, the team at Samson brings full customization capabilities and not only branding, but in custom equipment needed to execute your next project. From racks, barbells and plates, benches, flooring, storage, dumbbells, and much more, Samson equipment is durable and made to order from premium grade materials, all built from scratch, start to finish. Samson Equipment provides professional weight room solutions for all your strength and conditioning needs. See the Samson standard for yourself and learn more at samsonequipment.com. Also want to thank our sponsor, Cerberus Strength. Cerberus is an organization that truly puts the athlete first and actively works towards providing the best quality gear at an affordable price. Owned and operated by active lifters, Cerberus Strength has quickly evolved into a global brand symbolizing quality and trust. Their ever-growing product range is used by the top athletes around the world at the highest level of competition. And every single Cerberus Strength product has been designed with performance in mind, with the highest attention to detail. So if you're in the market for the highest quality, strength and conditioning gear and strongman equipment, be sure to check out CerberusStrength.com and use promo code STRENGTH_game to receive an extra 10% off your next order. Also want to thank our sponsor, Sport Kilt. Sport Kilt offers a wide range of universal and clan tartans, as well as custom sport kilts and an excellent selection of accessories and apparel to complement the kilt wearer. For over 25 years, Sport Kilt has been striving to perfect their version of the Scottish classic to create the ultimate garment of fashion and function. Check out the full line of kilts and join the kilt life at sportkilt.com and be sure to use our promo code TSG to save on your next order. And in this week's episode, I am joined by Erik Hernandez. Erik is the Associate Director of Sports Performance for Olympic Sports at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Hernandez began his tenure with the Tar Heels in August 2010 as an intern coach, with a year break in that stint where he served as a graduate assistant coach at the University of Tulsa in 2011, working with the football and basketball teams, before returning to UNC as an assistant strength conditioning coach. He was later promoted to his current title as the Associate Director of Sports Performance for Olympic Sports in 2019, where he currently is responsible for the men's lacrosse, men's golf, women's golf, and volleyball teams. Throughout his time at Chapel Hill, Hernandez has worked with several other teams, including the women's lacrosse team, during their 2016 and 2022 NCAA National Championship seasons. Hernandez cut his teeth in coaching in 2009 as a student intern at Loyola University Chicago, in addition to garnering experience as an intern at Arizona State University in 2010 and Niles North High School. In addition to his time working with collegiate athletes, Hernandez is the owner of Hernandez Health and Performance, where he has devised the Athlete Within Project, which is an online coaching program designed for former athletes who want to reconnect with their strength and non-athletes who are ready to discover their untapped potential. Hernandez is no stranger to competitive athletics himself, and he is a former shot putter on the Loyola University Chicago track and field team. He continues to stay active himself, training to be a healthy role model for his family, athletes, and clients. Nowadays, he typically is lifting 3 to 4 times a week, running 1 to 3 times a week, and training jiu-jitsu 1 to 2 times a week with his daughter. Like I said, I'm excited to have him on the show today. So, with all that said, let's get in the game with Coach Erik Hernandez. What's going on, everybody? Today I'm excited. We've got Coach Erik Hernandez on the show for a big episode. How you doing today, Coach?
Good. Hope you are as well.
Yeah, I'm doing well. This is also my first episode back in the new house. So you got the first one in this, I wouldn't say studio. It's just a blank screen wall behind me, but I'm excited to kind of get these recording again, get you on the show. You've been someone that I've been kind of targeting for a while, so I'm glad this is finally come to fruition today.
Me too.
Awesome. Well, hey, I know you've kind of told the story before, and like every kind of show is similar about bio and everything, but kind of give me like just the Cliff Note background about how you really got involved in training. Like, I know you were a collegiate thrower, you still involved in training yourself, but like, what was the inception that got really you excited about sports, athletics that kind of built into a coaching career as well?
I think probably the where it started, now I look back uh, more and more is probably when I was like a freshman in high school. I wasn't the tallest, so I had to find some sort of like genetic or something with some way to maximize my genetic potential. And I started in the weight room, and I still remember like the first time someone tried to help me bench like 95 pounds, and I got like stapled by it. And how I felt afterwards of being like, well, that was pretty bad. And then how I felt later on when I could, you know, lift more than that. So I guess that's kind of where it all started. My brother was a track and field athlete, so I wanted to be like him for such a long time. He had a little weight room set up in our basement. When the old narrow bar bench press, bench where you're trying to unrack it and not pinch your fingers, and so that's kind of where I started lifting. And then, I had one other buddy in high school, and he was really into it, so we kind of got into that. And then I did the track and field thing. Ended up being a better thrower than runner. I still did the running and I played football. Went on to do it in college. Wanted to go to med school originally. Still trained because that's what throwers did. Failed the MCAT. Then my strength coach was like, "Well, why don't you just become a strength coach?" And then I started really gathering internships, information, getting deeper into training. And I was pretty sure that, like, when I graduated college, that I wanted to be a college strength coach. Especially with a couple internships underneath my belt before I even graduated, which was really helpful. And I really recommend that to anyone right now. And then from there, I got pretty lucky. I went to Arizona State, came here as an intern, left in Tulsa as a GA, then came back as a part-time, and then I've been here full time ever since 2011.
That's awesome. Yeah. I've heard a lot of like the story too, and yours is very similar and different in also ways too for how people kind of start their career, but obviously like just starting from the athletics and it's a kind of tale as old as time where you're going through like, maybe not the best athlete or didn't have the metrics that would you would want to play the certain sport you wanted to play, but you made the most of it and you found training was the thing that really kind of either propelled you or kind of ignited your passion or both. So it's awesome to kind of see that and tailor it. When you were starting to kind of do those internships and then like your strength coach in college was like kind of suggesting that as an alternate to going the med school route or anything like that, was any other kind of coaching on your radar, like the private sector, or did you even kind of know about those things? Because I think a lot of coaches come in early on and they see the collegiate side because it's kind of in the spotlight, a little bit more sexy or like the professional, but some of them aren't really apt to fit in this kind of profession. Did you look outside to any other kind of coaching jobs or college? It was either college or bust.
That's actually a good question because now looking back on it, like I didn't really ever have the financial ability to get trained in high school like by anybody. So, I had friends that were going to different, back when acceleration was big, and I was like, oh man, I really wish I could do that. We just couldn't afford it. So it didn't really register to me like the landscape that like really exists in private training and how so there's some pretty cool situations out there. Um, so I guess for better or worse, I didn't really have that reference point, and it was just I just knew what I knew, which was college strength and conditioning because I was in a couple programs like that and never been in a high school. My high school, we didn't even have a strength coach, so that wasn't an option. I never did private training in high school, so that wasn't an option. So they're like, a relevant option to me because I haven't had any experience with it. So it was really just, I was just exposed to college strength and conditioning the most. So I was like, all right, this is all I really think about then. But, now I think about it, it might have been interesting if I would have known more about those other situations.
Yeah, I just thought of it because going like to take your MCATs and like kind of looking at the medical route, you'd think more so like, oh, like college strength conditioning, like the coaching, like I didn't know if you were trying to almost disassociate with everything that had to do with medicine and you found coaching in college, or you were trying to find a way to like, hey, can I coach and still be kind of close, like outpatient procedures or like working in a physical therapist. And I think like again, some of these interns or young coaches that come in, they don't know that there's all these different options. And I'm sure like mentoring and seeing all these different coaches come through UNC and come through your program, there's some of them where you're like, maybe the college side, like you can push for it, but I think your skill set and your demeanor and your character might fit more well as a coach in this sector. Do you have those conversations with some of those individuals, or how do you kind of go about that?
Yes. So I guess I forgot to say, like when I first went to school, I wanted to go to like the PT route. Then I wanted to go to quickly after that to the med school route. And then once I didn't do well in that, I was just like, well, okay, I kind of get like I want to work with athletes and I want to help them when they get injured. But then I was like, oh, maybe I can be part of like the solution to them getting injured. It's like, like trying to prevent some of that stuff because I had two pretty big back injuries, one in high school, one in college. So that was like I was like, there maybe I can help prevent some of this stuff a little bit. But yeah, I mean that's something that I think it's important to I didn't know the other options and to talk to the interns about our young coaches about the other options that are out there. We've had some really great coaches come through our program that are awesome PTs now that I call on a regular basis for advice as they've developed themselves over the field. I have one sports science intern that we had that now is wants to be a strength coach so, and a sports scientist, like blend. And then we have a couple other ones that still college or one guy, that I'm gonna go visit next week who's a great private sector strength conditioning coach. Um, so yeah, I think it's important to look at like, all right, what are their strengths and what are like and then what how can that they use that to leverage a great situation for them going forward so they can still help people make a living, not just do 10 more unpaid internships. And sometimes it is like you need maybe one more just to develop your network a little bit more or to you develop your skill set. So yeah, it's always trying to look at, and just like athletes, like what's your potential, what do we need to lean into a little bit more, what can you really fall back on. And if they have something they're passionate about or they're talented at, if they keep getting better at that, they're going to get paid for it. So yeah, just trying to help them figure out like the options out there. Also, what makes them tick? Like, why did they take our internship? Is it because they really wanted to, learn? Is it because they wanted to become a strength coach? Is it because they wanted to work at college? And then they usually give me some more data points that I can help them steer and be like, oh, well, this is still close to why you originally came here. So I don't want you to feel like you're walking away from this internship like it didn't push you towards your end goal. It still helps. So I always want to make sure that, just like if I'm working with an athlete or client, that there's a return on investment. So if they're interning for us, like there should be a return on investment of their time uh, from what their original you know, goals were for coming to Carolina.
No, that's a good way to put it too, like the return of investment too, because interns are coming for different th reasons, and you don't want to get just a cookie cutter of the same kind of coach, like young coach every single time. And you're hoping that the same way that you look at full-time staff and you're bringing people on, like they have character traits and they've got unique qualities that make like their strengths or passionate about that kind of add to the culture and add to just the demeanor of the full staff. So you don't want to just kind of get the same person, and you also want to make sure that they are kind of brushing up on all the things so they don't become just one dimensional or they're just kind of polishing up their strengths because they're probably so young in their career too that you might be really good at one thing, but even to put you in a job that's like specifically for that, you don't have the breadth of experience to handle all the different circumstances that are going to come be thrown at you or that you're going to have to kind of withstand as a full-time coach. You might be really good technically at running the GPS, but no one's going to hire you to run the GPS if you can't do all the other things that aren't on that job application.
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
It's interesting because I'm now being like away from like some of the interns and not having the ability to really bring on interns. Like that was the one thing I really enjoyed. And like when you were talking too, like I've done 5 unpaid internships, not out of pretty much out of necessity because trying to find something and also because I want to go out and learn from other individuals. But I would say that's probably not the best path to do. At some point in time, you should try to get paid for it. But it did give me a lot of experience of what to do, what not to do. I would say my network probably didn't grow very much because a couple of those people are not in the profession for various reasons. So that sometimes is a coin flip whether or not you're gonna actually have a bigger network when you're done with that internship.
yeah, and that's things that, I recommend if they're going to go on to the next one internship, like you need to really think about it as far as like, is it one that you're going to go into that has upward mobility? Does it have coaches that are one or like are they the kind of coach that you want to learn from? Like that's probably the biggest thing. Like don't just go for simply the network, but I mean, if you're gonna go, you want to learn from them, but you also hope that they have a network as well because at some point you got to get paid, and it really helps when you can put a personal reference behind your name, and earn one. So that's it matters. It matters a lot, and so that's something I try to do for our interns as well is, keep my network in good standing so that in the event that I have someone that I can help along, that that's something I can do that I know would have helped me a lot more earlier on in my career.
Yeah, being able to vouch for someone and actually and put your name behind and someone like and actually give an endorsement. That's huge, like in this profession too, because the amount of times that people will post like for jobs and then people will just randomly apply for, the most of the time you're getting those jobs based off of some roundabout degree of separation that someone knows you or heard of you or can at least vouch for you. And people are a lot less likely, it seems, nowadays to kind of take a chance on someone, no matter how good your resume is, unless you're kind of outwardly out, kind of showcasing your work or someone who has worked for you or worked against you, like in some sort of capacity, is saying, hey, this person, like you should at least consider. And then foot in the door, you can actually kind of showcase yourself a little bit more. With all the interns that have kind of come through, has there been any like kind of singular character trait or something like a quality in them that kind of shows you either potential within the career or is like something that's like, hey, this person is successful. Like at the end of their internship, like all these people have done this or exhibit this that shows that they're going to be a successful coach.
Yeah, I mean, more and more, I think one thing is their ability to handle feedback, and then be an empty cup, right? That you can keep helping out and filling up. Like, uh, it's real. I even tell like new athletes when they come in, and this is something I've learned the hard way myself personally. Like when you're going in a new program, so whether it's an intern entering our program, an athlete entering, my program, if it's a team that I'm in charge of, just come in ready for feedback, ready to kind of not forget everything you know, like, you trust your principles and instincts and things like that, but just be open to a kind of a new way. And if they're able to do that and consistently like accept feedback, refine, accept feedback, refine, then from the first to the, 15th or 16th week, whatever it is, they're able to really be in a position to handle the next step, whatever that may be. Because along the way, you'll keep having checkpoints. 3 weeks in, okay, now they're getting the understanding, like, how to coach a certain exercise you want. Okay, now I want you to run the warm up like that. Okay, and then they can do that for 3 weeks. Okay, now I want you to run the lift, and then I can do that for 3 weeks. And then, all along the lines, giving them some other uh, responsibilities as well, so that at the end of 16 weeks, it's not that they're just like making my life easier because they're doing so much for me. It's they've been given a really, really good opportunity to grow, lead, and show what they're capable of under like, the supervision um, of me, but or of us. But if they take too long early on, because if it's a semester, like it's next thing you know, you're 8 weeks in, you're halfway done. Like I can only get you so much more responsibility to see what you're really made of, and if you're ready for an assistant job, another intern job, or a part paid intern job, or a GA job, like that, they're all going to be different depending on how you finish up. And it all starts with how willing and you are to accept feedback, learn, and to not know everything so that you can learn more. That's a big one. That's a big one. And can they do that? And then can they do that consistently? Just like new athletes, right? Okay, I get calls a lot of times from high school coaches or personal trainers, and then they're like, "Hey, what do you want such and such to be able to do?" And I say, "Come in healthy with good range of motion and ready to learn." And if they're ready to learn, like I'll take care of it from there. Um, but if they're not willing to learn because they're really stuck in their ways, if they have injuries that they haven't kind of caught up with, or and try to get as much as they can fixed up, then it's going to impede our ability to teach, grow, teach, grow, teach, grow, through the process.
Yeah, I like that continuing cycle too, just like basically giving feedback and then refining it and then growing and learning from it too. Like it's really never ending and it's so similar for a coach as it is for an athlete. It's just kind of the manner that you're trying to improve, whether it be coaching or trying to improve athleticism, like that same refining, kind of working on your craft and being humble and being willing to kind of continuously go through that motion like it's the same thing for both of them, which is cool to kind of hear. And then like talking about how quickly you are to be willing to adapt and learn and kind of stay humble and open is what's going to project you to like what you kind of say like, hey, maybe you should not really be looking for like a full-time job. Like you still have a lot more to do after this time and everybody's path and kind of coaching experience and how quickly they handle that feedback determines like what they should do next. Are you pretty deliberate when it comes to like those checkpoints? Because a lot of people seem to just do kind of the normal old school HR, like, oh, here's your first initial kind of counseling, like you're getting almost feedback in the very beginning, and then you just bank it away in a file cabinet, and then like, oh, the semester rolls is about to close out, and you're like, oh, we got to do your midterm, or we have to do your end of the year kind of review. But it sounds like you're a little bit more deliberate, having like checkpoints throughout the semester with those interns. So then you can kind of give them more responsibilities, or is it just like, hey, you see it happen, like I know instinctively like what to do next.
Blend of both, right? So, I don't run our internship program. In John Lamb and Alex Penner, they're in charge of staffing and all the curriculum and everything, and they do a great job of that. So kind of what I'm speaking to is more so like the individuals that get assigned with me the most, right? And I really struggle with formal evaluations, personally, and just as I don't know, maybe because I'm not the best bookkeeper, which I probably could be better at. Um, but I think it's just because it's really tough for me to ha to have an opinion or see something, hold on to it until 2 weeks later, and then let the coach or the intern know, or the athlete or the coach know, like, yeah, you haven't been doing this well. Because then how are they going to refine, and how are they going to, and like I always think like our semester is literally maybe 15, 16 weeks of training with several interruptions within there. And anytime I need to fix something, like it usually takes me personally like a week or so of like really doing it to do it. So if I keep waiting a week, next thing you know, like we're pretty close to, a tough time to ask someone to change when they're in the height of intensity or something like that. If we're thinking about like, how internships or, beginning semester to end of semester kind of progresses. So I try to just do it all the time. First off, I'm very upfront with our interns and our athletes. Here's my communication style and here's why. A friend of mine, Brian Peters, kind of helped me develop this because I just took it from him, but I was just kind of expressing to him like my frustration and how sometimes I maybe don't come off as sincere as I mean. So I start in the beginning to say, hey, I'm going to give feedback, and it's nothing personal. I promise you. Like, it may come off as negative feedback, but it's just trying to keep you within the guardrails on the road. Like, I have to tell you no, I have to tell you no so that you stay in the right path. And then I'm going to try to, help you as much as possible, keeping the energy going in the car, by giving, other feedback. But if I tell you don't do this or don't do this, it's just because I don't want you to get hurt. Say if you're an athlete, like doing something, or I don't want you to get in trouble. Like if you're saying the wrong thing or pushing the wrong buttons, I'm going to give you those guidelines, because if I know them, why wouldn't I? And then within there's going to be some room for error, changes, modifications, you know, uh, pushes in the right direction, all that other coaching stuff that happens in the middle. But if I tell them that like these guardrails of negative feedback aren't personal, it makes it a lot easier to keep giving them that feedback. And then I kind of go back to the original talk of like, hey, I'm telling you this because, this is for your long-term benefit. Um, but I also make sure I make space in there within hey, if it's coming off the wrong way, or if I'm saying it, they're like, you let me know, like I can make my adjustments. But this is where I'm going to start with. Here's my intentions behind it, and then so every session, an intern will get feedback from me pretty much, unless and about everything. Like at first, it's hey, I saw you standing here, Paige. I want you to stand over here during the lift because you can't see anything over there. Hey Lark, when you're covering your warm up, like I can't hear you. Like I'm 20 yards out and I can't hear you. So I can't have you on the warm up anymore um if you're not able to project and get that, because otherwise, like, how's this kid gonna over here gonna know what we're doing? And then you're just not gonna be an effective coach. Not because you're not trying hard, just because you don't realize like where your voice isn't getting. And I'll give them session, feedback in session. And at first, if you're on the outside looking in, you're probably like, man, that guy's an a-hole, right? Because I'll say, going back to my girl Lark, love her. She's at Jacksonville State now, but I would, she really wanted to run the warm up. I said, okay. I said, well, I'm going to give you feedback during it. Okay, okay. So I'm standing on the 50, on the sideline. She's running the warm up, and I can't hear her. So I just start yelling louder, louder, louder. So the lacrosse guys are like kind of giggling, and she's like, she's turning red and everything. But I'm filming it so that I can be like, this is why, like, like I can't hear you. Um, and she knows ahead of time. I'm like, hey, I'm sorry. Like, I don't have to yell it if you don't want. Or, no, no, I just need to hear the feedback. So like, I'm just very upfront with it, and consistent. Otherwise, there's no shot in there that they're going to keep recalling it because it's hard. I really wish I would have had that. It would have been not easy, but I really would have wanted that. And if they don't, I can tell, right? So then I'm like, I just want to put them in those situations where I have to give them feedback to where they're going to feel uncomfortable and, maybe talk down to or something like that. Hey, can you go run this? And then I don't have to give that feedback. I can just, hey, see that, change that, or, hey, see that, just this. And I try to do it in session. My goal, someone taught me a long time ago, was like, if you have an intern or someone helping you, it shouldn't be so that you can do less. It should be that you can do more. So my goal is to get them up to speed so that I can let them take care of this group so I can work on this group. Or let them take care of this individual so they can get better attention, as opposed to me trying to kind of give them feedback, but also run the group at the same time. and then no one ever gets like, a detailed approach. Um, so that's something that I try to strive for. Get someone up to speed to which they can allow me to do more in the session, and allow athletes to get better feedback in session because we've gotten them to the coaching standard that we need.
Yeah, I like that. That's a really good point too, because I've seen internship programs and being a part of them, or kind of being at a place where someone else is like kind of managing kind of those younger coaches, and I've seen it done in a way where they're just kind of going through the motions. They're changing weights, they're writing stuff down, like they're just doing kind of like remedial work. They're not really learning a lot of stuff. They're just checking a box and they're just a warm body around. And at some point in time, you kind of have to do those things. And like there are tiered kind of levels, I think, to internship programs. And you just have to be very, like you talked about, providing people feedback. You have to be very upfront with like, hey, you're here, like you're kind of at a volunteer status, and that's what I try to do it. Like you're here to kind of shadow, see if you like the profession, see if you really want to be involved in it. Like I can't really trust you to do a lot of things. Like I'll give you as much feedback as you can, but like you're not really gonna be out in front and coaching because you're still kind of a liability in a way. But these other interns that are coming, they're like, I'm set on this career, I want to do this. You have to give them that in-session feedback and providing those things like to your point, I wish I had that too, because I think a lot of the times going through the internship programs, all the mentors like leading it really ended up doing was kind of just showing me what the career was and just kind of letting me have free reign, which in a way wasn't bad because I think if you're kind of intrinsically motivated and you're doing your own research and you go in every single day kind of with new information or a different approach, you can kind of refine it yourself, but it'd be so much nicer to have a seasoned coach that's right there in the moment say, "Hey, have you ever thought about doing it this way?" before you get so either stuck in your ways about doing something or have built up in your head that you're doing something correctly when you're really just grinding your gears and there's a better approach or something else that someone's already gone through that process to kind of speed up your coaching so you can get to the solution quicker. So it's a cool way to do it too, because I know that it sounds like the way that you kind of talk to them too, provide that feedback. You treat it as a two-way street when you're telling your athletes and those interns on the front end, like, hey, you can provide the feedback. This is kind of how I am as a coach. Like, I'm not trying to be a jerk about anything, but this is how I communicate. So if you feel like it's the wrong way, well, approach that with me. I've heard you kind of talk about it, and I know there's like the Carolina way, like quote unquote, how you go about like starting with your teams and kind of having player responsibilities, especially with the lacrosse team that's such a big program. How do you kind of like develop in those kind of captains or those individuals on the team that have more leadership roles so they can kind of take more ownership of the team? And the same thing, you can kind of let them police themselves and like run the culture and you kind of just make sure that you do course correction so the team is on the same way because they're the ones playing. You're just kind of help guiding what the head coach's culture is going to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And it's very different for every year. Every year, every team is different. You know, last year it was pretty heavily me, you know, trying to just, like, for example, lacrosse, like, um, just being on their butts about everything, everything. It was exhausting, but they appreciated it, and like, and it started to like um, get into their grain a little bit, like the fabric of what they did. Um, I would, and there, you can usually identify a few people that you're like, okay, they have the potential to do it. You don't know how they're going to respond when you start giving them responsibility, but small responsibilities, like, I ask them at the end of a session, so I'll be very particular about like who I need to ask how the session went today in front of everybody, and then for both ways for them to get leadership of like, what they thought was, from an athlete perspective, good, bad, yeah, or the other. And even if, but at the same time, like if there's something that was really against what our culture was, small or bigger, like that, I mean, it gets brought up right then too in front of everybody, just so that if not, then it's going to be something that's accepted. And when you have 52 people or more, it's real easy for it to become two, three, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10, and then that's too big of an influence on what we're trying to not do, and then that keeps ballooning. So being very strategic about like, oh, I really need to bring that up in front of everybody, even if it's an individual that I want to be leader. Hey, well, you're missing it because of this, because of what you did today. And you find out like after you have like one or two of those that like it doesn't really come up as much anymore unless we need to. So that was like, last year where it's kind of like ruling by, being a little more militaristic. And then this year, I haven't really haven't had to do as much of that because, if you we have a especially we have a little older team, but like we have some guys that really just took to it and they've kind of started it before me. Like, so I didn't really have to do, I wasn't going to mess up something that's kind of already pretty good, And so I always trying to read that part of things and save that energy for another year or another semester when I may need to do it. Let a good thing be a good thing, and then in some other teams, it's like, I always try to get like the coaches' perspective on who their leaders, who they want their leaders to be, who they think their leaders are. And so I can help develop those in our situation. And I'll be really honest with them too and be like, here's how I'm going to approach your team. You can tell me if I need to do it differently. Like, for men's golf, we have a team this year that's, a lot younger, very different. And, you know, I always want to work within the coach's framework. So I'm like, hey, how do you want me to go about this? This is what I think we need to work on this year before we even care about training. He's like, all right, then he needs to get your program. And I agree with you. I'm like, well, here's what I'm going to do. Here's probably what I'm going to say. Are you okay with that? Yeah. Okay. All right, sounds good. And if it's ever something that like I'm unsure if it's like it's like borderline, I'll ask them first, hey, this is what I'm going to say to so and so, and then I'll let them coach me up and like, hey, just change that part. Like, all right, you're right, and then I'll go and then they'll do that. Um, those are kind of like examples of how I try to identify layers I go through to identify like who we should try to get a leader, how I try to approach the team as a whole. Um, but I don't have like a quote unquote system. This is exactly how we're gonna do it. I kind of feed off of them. Uh, but I'm very like if I see something that I think is gonna be an issue to the team culture, I try to go pretty much straight at it. And not rude, but like I'll try to get them to talk to me and give me a bunch of information about where they're at, what they want, and then kind of maybe like, hey, this is something that I think where you're missing right now. Like, and you say this is what you want, but here's what your actions are actually showing. Like we just, coach is going to want me to talk about that. Like, I'm just very upfront with it. So there's no like, there's no opportunity for them to take my actions or words anything other than face value.
Yeah, there's no ambiguity with it at all,
Yep.
and like being upfront and kind of setting the standard and the tone like from the very beginning, but also like kind of giving those guidelines that you talked about in the beginning of how you're going to approach them, how you're going to kind of communicate that message, and how you want that message kind of also given in return. Like they have the opportunity to speak up and say things as well, and it's their team. You're there as part of it, and you're supporting in every way possible. But you also have the backing of the head coach by having all those meetings. And yeah, to your point, like that bad psychology, like bad body language, like people talking behind people's backs, bad attitudes, all that stuff spreads faster than a virus. And a large team, like all of those little kind of clicky things can start to really like pull back even the majority until someone actually addresses it and nips it in the bud. And it's great that you have a team that's so like open about it that like you could air that stuff out. and no one's going to take it personal. Everybody has the same like goal, overarching theme of what they want to accomplish. And sometimes people's actions or their words are not actually in line with those goals and they just need to be addressed. And that's kind of a coach's job and a tough love. And then hopefully you can pass that responsibility like it is a little bit more this year to the players. And it doesn't even have to get to you. And then it doesn't have to get to the head coach. It doesn't have to be a bigger issue where it's actually jeopardizing more so the culture and the whole group in the season because it's starting to run away with itself. So I wonder because you've been, like you said, at UNC for so long, like first started like interning there in 2010, and I know you had some other stops, and then coming back like full time in 2011, and then just elevating in your role to become like the associate director for the Olympic sports and the sport performance. You've worked with so many teams throughout there. UNC is kind of historically like a powerhouse when it comes. It's like one of the schools a lot of people like dream about going to and working with, and you've worked with so many different teams. In your time, has there been any coach, whether it's at UNC or somewhere else, where it's just you and them aren't really clicking? Like their idea of what either your role as a support staff member and a coach is, or their philosophy of how things are going to get handled, like just it's hard to like come to a head and like mesh together. And if like with that conflict, how are you able to kind of deconflict that if that actually happened? Because I think young coaches aren't prepared for that. And then they get into a situation, they become a yes man, or they become so stuck in their principles that there's no even opportunity to come together as a compromise.
Yeah. I think the easy answer is like you got to kind of be in between, and you always have to be asking yourself kind of, and maybe it doesn't sound great, but like where you sit in the totem pole, everyone has a boss. I have I have a director boss. I have a men's lacrosse coach boss. I have a women's volleyball coach boss. I have a men's and women's golf boss, and then I have administrators. And so I have all these bosses, right? And I don't say that because like I'm not, it's not that I'm not working with them. I just have to keep that in mind. Like ultimately it's their team, their department, whatever it is. That doesn't mean that uh I'm less than. I think that's probably a big thing. It's like don't let it be an ego hit. Just because we're in sports doesn't mean we're not any different than any other structure in business. Everyone has someone they're serving or working for. So if they want it done a certain way, okay, like you can probably still do it with your values intact. And if you can't, well, then those are different situations. Like, you have to figure out how you have to keep your values intact. But most of the time, I find that like even if someone wants it done a certain way, whether it's like, hey, Eric, I want you to run this running, Eric, I want you to run this type of whatever. I can usually say, okay, here, maybe make sure I'm clear about what bullet points you want, delivered in this session or whatever it may be. Okay, and then I go back to just being honest and transparent and be like, okay, if I'm doing this to get this, can I still do this in this manner so that like because I think this would kind of still fit into what I'm thinking. And if the answer is no, you can't do that, and it's not like no one's getting hurt, no one's getting like something's getting, treated poorly, well then whatever. Like what's really the net negative? Is it the net negative more my ego is like, or is the negative like someone actually getting hurt? Right? If it's just my ego, well then what are you doing? Like we're still part of a team. Especially when I work like if you look at it's hard for Olympic sports strength coaches, I think sometimes to see it because we're like the boss. We're the boss of a team really quickly. Sometimes too soon, probably. We're not assistants long enough. But if you look at, I just think about like some of these assistant coaches that have come through uh, our teams, not just like strength conditioning, but like they've been head coaches before. They've been around. And then to see them adapt and just be the assistant to the head coach and operate great and be a great contributor and all these things, it shows me that like, well, why can't I do that? I mean, why am I so being so stuck that, no, we have the back squat or no, we have to do this. Um, there's just other ways to be effective. And then after time, maybe you get back one of those things that you wanted, right? But it's all within what I feel, still comfortable with my values. Anyone who would feel like they're not really doing it, well, what they should for the values should really figure out what, if they need to make a change because you don't want to be in that situation.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Like you gotta really look into it and see if it's actually crossing something that like is one of your non-negotiables. Like, is
Mhm.
it really like harming your ego more so than anything? Like, it's besides the point. Like, just get
Yeah.
through it. But if it's something that's actually going to put the athletes at harm, like in the opposite way, or if it's crossing past, like it's something so simple that you can just find a different alternative, then just do that. Like, there's so many ways to skin the cat, and there's so many different things that you can do with the session. Like, find a new way. But I do like what you said too, like in those conversations, like when you're sitting down with those coaches, you're the subject matter expert for the weight room and like their performance and their athletic development as it pertains to that sport and that coach. And they're looking for you for guidance and like, hey, this is the team I have, this is the mission, this is what I need you to do. Like you have to work within these parameters. If there's something in there that doesn't really or is like you see is going to be like a hiccup in it, you should be able to say like, okay, just to clarify this. Does this mean you can't do this? Rather than come out of a meeting like upset that they gave you all these rules like, hey, I can't barbell bench like the baseball team. Well, did you ask any follow-up questions? Did you ask why they say that? Did you do anything, or was it just black and white, you can't do this, and you just walked out and accepted it? Like you should be able to have those conversations with the coaches. Yeah, again, on the totem pole, you work with them, like, and you work under them because it is their team, but that doesn't mean you just have to take everything as the gospel. You can actually kind of look into it a little bit more and be inquisitive and see why they got to that reason. Because I baseball, like that's a perfect example of working for a coach. He was like, "You are not allowed to do this." And I kept asking questions, and it's because he tore his pec doing it. So he doesn't want any of that because he is so freaked out about that happening with his pitchers that I'm like, okay, well, can we do this? Oh yeah, you can do this. You can do this alternative. It's like if I never would have asked, I would have just took out a whole plane of movement for the whole year. And
Mhm.
I'm glad that like I actually had that conversation with him. I think a lot of young coaches just don't even know how to do those things because that's one thing I know going into a full-time position, I don't feel like I was prepared for is the amount of meetings and kind of interactions you have with the coach and how quick they are to give you feedback about what's going on and how quickly you're supposed to change it. As a GA, there's some coaches I almost never saw. They're like, go to the weight room and then make sure they don't get hurt and give me the product on the field and we'll worry about the other stuff. They were so separate. But also, like as a GA, I had like 150 athletes and four football groups, two lacrosse groups, one women's lacrosse group, two baseball groups, and then go to school and then train and then do what GAs do, which is close down the bar. So like there's no time for anything else under the sun. So I know getting the first full-time job, that was a wake-up call. The amount of times that you actually had conversations about the team.
Yeah. I read something somewhere. I'm going to butcher the quote, but it's like structure, you know, doesn't really constrict, it liberates you more. So like if I like to be like, hey, tell me exactly what structure you want and get them to say, well, I don't care what you do about this, but like I just want this done. I'm like, all right, great. Because then the rest of the time I know exactly where I can't go. And that's a great. I really have that. I really have someone tell me, hey, just don't barbell bench. All right, great. Can I do this, and that, and the other? All right, perfect. Like same thing with like trainers, then they're like, injury modification. They can't do this. All right, great. So everything else they can do? Yep. All right, perfect.
Oh yeah, that's a great way to put it too. I have that same feeling because I have the amount of times that I have like my tactical population come up and be like, "Oh, I want to do this." Like, okay. And then they just dead stop. Like, that's the end of the conversation. They're like, "Oh, so you want to give me something for that?" I was like, "I could give you anything under the sun. Like, I need a little bit more so I can kind of narrow the focus. You gave me the overarching goal, but I need more information so that I can disseminate that and get it into like a tighter package." And if your left and right limits are just, "Hey, I'm not training, I want to train. I have a PT test." Like, there's anything under the sun possible. Like, where are you going to train? How much are you going to train? How much do you like to? Can you run? Can you not run? Do you like running? Do you not like running? Do I have to, the parameters, yeah. And like you said, having a little bit of structure is, I think, one thing that definitely I miss about the collegiate side, because here's the games, here's the championship, here's the build up to the season, here's how many people you have. They're going to be with you all year. Like, take them from A to Z. Hopefully, you have them for a second, third year, fourth year, whatever it is, and you can have a little bit of that structure built out and show that progress. It's a little different in the tactical space. But I love that's a great way to kind of put to sum that stuff up too. And that's a better way for me to program, especially in my head.
Mhm.
Hey, so kind of talking on that injury kind of frame and just training in general. I know you kind of suffered some stuff like you talked about, like just with your back that kind of put you on a different path, like after the collegiate throwing side and like coming out of high school and everything. What's kind of your training look like nowadays? Like, how do you kind of approach that yourself? Are you kind of set on a program? Are you kind of using it as a way to experiment what you're going to do with your athletes kind of moving forward? Or how do you kind of structure like staying active and kind of practicing what you preach in the weight room yourself?
That's a good question. So, I've went through a while where I read my programs, and I would maybe like write a phase for a team, and then I'd do it first. And I think that's a really good way to do it, honestly. But I also own my own business as well. So I started paying someone else to do my program about 3 years ago. And that was for a couple of reasons. One, I wanted to take it as an opportunity to learn from the coaches. Two, like just for like for me personally, two, like I wanted accountability. Like if I'm paying someone to do it, I'm definitely gonna do it because I could always find a reason like not to do something, also to not to do things that I needed to do. I would just always pick, set of five or two or three or whatever, and go from there. So it was getting me to do something that I needed to do, not what I wanted to do. Learn from a coach, but also to help me structure like what it's like to be the remote client on my end and how that could help me then with my remote clients, provide like how did I like the way a coach talked to me? How did I like the way a coach reviewed video? How did I like a coach, sent out a program or, made modifications for me? What's kind of the market like as far as, what I should expect from certain price points and things like that. So that's how I develop my program. And then I'll put in things that are like um that I just need to keep up on because of, you know, for lack of a better term, like therapeutic sense, like, and coaching as well. So originally, Derek Hansen wrote some running for me. So, I keep up on that and I figured out it would actually help my back a lot. And so I just keep threads in, even though maybe the coach I'm using now doesn't put it in there, I'll still keep some running in because I need to be able to demo. I need to also get the benefits of that. Olympic lifting, I hadn't Olympic lifted for a while. And then I realized I'm getting kind of rusty in my coaching and so then as I visited Mike Catone is a big mentor of mine, and so when I'd visit him, watch him train others, I asked him one day if he could help me a little bit, and then I kept that up, so I just keep enough in there just to keep sharp with the coaching cues and being able to demo. um, and then, the strength work and, I keep up with, Sal Losi did my first program. Ed Williams is doing my program now. And I'll keep like, experimenting so I can just see different ways, the coaches that I respect and want to keep learning from. You know, I, I would love to say I should stay with one coach for forever, but I do value the that and the different inputs. And so I'll probably keep changing it, however many year increments or whatever that is, just to kind of keep learning.
That's cool. I like that. That's a good approach, I think, too. Especially like you said, having your own business that also has remote clients as well. That's a great way to kind of see what they're actually dealing with and the communication style and all the things that you kind of mentioned too. And it's nice to same thing for the collegiate athletes that you work with too. See what feedback looks like, even if it's remote, but also, yeah, you're tied to the program. Like you kind of want to, in a way, not let that person down. And you're also paying for it too. So like in the back of your head, like just pissing away money if you're not doing it. And you're only hurting yourself at that point too. But that's a good approach too. And being able to also still make sure that you can demo and like brush up on all those other things because it's it's one thing to be able to go in there and kind of just say stuff, but like most athletes are visual too. And it looks so much better coming from like the head coach of that program, like, oh, this is how you do it, this is how you execute it, and you're demoing, you're giving them tactile cues, you everything is coming from you because like you also can't rely also in the very beginning on the interns. I know that for sure because I've had some interns too. Like I've showed them how to do stuff and then they go out and demo and it's just like, oh no, like it's definitely not the way that I want everybody to see it. And you basically they self-sabotage themselves and I don't want to throw them under the bus, but then I got to go in and say, actually, guys, you got to do it this way. Like coach was just off cue on one thing and then like you could see their face. I remember walking back and one intern was just like hitting his head against the wall. Like after he did, I was like, it's all right, man. Like they'll forget about it by tomorrow. Don't worry. But like it's you got to know how to do those things too before you just throw it into a program. But I like that approach too, like being an athlete yourself and then kind of outsourcing that programming because you could do it yourself, but you're going to find like different ways, especially in as busy of a schedule as you have to like kind of cut corners or like, oh, 5 reps, I'm feeling like a two today. Um, but yeah, kind of talk about that too, like the athlete within project. I know you're the owner of Hernandez Health and Performance, and you have some clients and stuff that you work with on the side. How did that kind of come about? Because I know that market is very valuable, and it's something that I think a lot of, especially collegiate coach, I know you work with other athletes, but post-collegiate athletes that are getting out that have no idea kind of the resources they have available when they're collegiate athletes, and then they're just lost souls after they graduate, and then they're just reaching out for help. Like, how did that come about, and like, who are you kind of working with?
So I had it actually started with a kind of a group of volleyball ladies that graduated, and it was like 2020, and they're like, Eric, he's like, just need to do a program online. I said, man, it's not the same, it's not blah blah blah. I like to coach people, and they're like, well, try it. So I first started just with like a little group, free group, sending out PDFs. Then I had a video. Then I had to, try to ask them what they would pay, and then I started. So it was pretty rough, like start, but I wouldn't change that. It's just like anything else. Like you're not going to figure it out until you start going. Um, and that's where it really started with a group of volleyball girls who really wanted to train with me post collegiately, but they're in California or Virginia, wherever they were. So I started doing that, and then they started posting about it a little bit, and then other people would ask me about it. Then I kind of refined it more, and then I got onto you know, a proper platform. Then I used Instagram to kind of push it more. And I work with, the group is anyone that maybe just graduated college, played a sport. I have a couple athletes who their moms do the program just because they're like, they see it and they're curious and just gives the biggest thing is like, it's and that's why I call the athlete within. It's really anybody because I would at first I was like, here's how I train athletes. But then I started working with like Gen Pop clients, young kids, things like that. I'm like, well, there's not really a difference. Like they should all start this similar. It's just a matter of how where I take it from there. But squat's a squat. And so they should know how to do it well. whether it's body weight, kettlebell, barbell. Uh, my thing is like, all right, it doesn't matter who you are. Like there's some athlete in you, and you need to have that mentality when we're training. So I'm not going to just give you something and talk down to you like, oh, well, don't worry about that. No, no, this is the athlete you are, and whether that's your sport is just trying to get up and down the stairs without being winded or your knee hurting, or whether your sport is playing pickleball on the weekends or whatever. Um, I want you to I want you to have a training program that'll help you that'll help those things and just feel better. Be well-rounded, because a lot of times you're not going to have a well-rounded program if you're just kind of exercising. Let's train with a purpose. So it's literally made for anybody. There now, what I try to tell people is the difference is like coaching, and that's why, and I'll never get away from that, because I think you can buy programs all over the place, and I will still coach this one to be the difference maker, and I will adjust based off of who the group is, and like just like I would do with the team. And I will go as far into depth with someone as they want to come meet me halfway. I have some clients that I never talk to, and I have to text them and say, "Hey, you still training?" And they're like, "Yeah, everything's great." I'm like, "All right, cool." And I have some people who message me daily, five times a week or so, with videos, and I give them reviews. So it just really depends. Like it's no different than I treat it no different than if they're an athlete here. If they're going to ask me questions, if they're going to want me to see them lift or whatever, or if they're going to keep coming in, well, I'll give them the help that they need. And if they need the space, because there's nothing wrong with that as well. Like sometimes I go through phases where I don't send anything to the coach because I'm just like, gonna get it in. I know what I'm doing. Sometimes I need more than the other. So that's the unique part about the athlete within, is that it doesn't matter who you are, you're going to be able to get something out of it as long as you want to. I have a lot of young coaches that are starting to sign up now, and that's been really fun because it allows them to do what I'm essentially doing, like ask questions to somebody, be the person getting coached, take around, turn around and practice it on somebody else. Um, and then they give me feedback too. One of the coaches that I train for a while now is Bree Brown over at Miami, and she's an excellent strength coach. Excellent strength coach. When I first started writing a program for her, I was like, "Oh, she knows probably more than I do, so I don't know what I'm going to do." And then as we kept going along, she'd give me feedback that would help me refine her program, but also others' programs. So like it's a two-way street. I'm really enjoying, all the parts of all this that I never knew existed. And maybe it's not the same as in person, but I think I'm getting, I get a lot of fulfillment out of it. And I think others are getting more of it than they originally thought. Because personally, when I hire a coach, I'm getting more of it than I would have thought as well. Yeah, sure, I wish they were here, but sometimes it's also nice. Like, I don't want to be watched every time. So yeah, it's meant for everybody. And it's been fun to work with people on
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a cool way to kind of do it. And it's definitely different than that in person, but I'm sure it refines kind of your in-person coaching. And then, I mean, obviously just going through programming and finding ways to simplify information and give it to athletes because like you said, some of them are not going to reach out very often. So that one interaction, like when you actually contact them, like it needs to be kind of straight to the point. It has to have the meat of everything. It has to be easily digestible that they can understand it because you might not follow up with them for a couple weeks. And if they didn't really understand what you were trying to get across and like what the purpose and intention of either a movement or exercise is, they could be doing the wrong thing for 4 weeks
it.
until they check in or you give them a new program and they're like, I don't even understand what this is. So that's an interesting way to kind of refine it. And then also, like you said, having those coaches start to kind of get involved too. That's kind of like what I thought would some of the really good internship programs were, where you either all lifted together, like almost a staff lift, which was always fun, even if you weren't doing the same thing. Like everybody's getting after it and you got someone in the corner doing strongman stuff. You got someone getting ready for a powerlifting meet. Someone's doing Olympic lifting. Like at Georgetown, when I was there, like it was a free for all. Everybody was doing crazy stuff, or we were all doing the same thing, or some dumb thing that Carl was Like, oh, Carl's pulling out the 360-pound stone to see who can lap it today. And it just became a free for all, but just chaos. But it was so much fun. And then going to some other places, having interns like run the next phase's program, and then have one of the interns lead the group that day, and then everybody else gets to train. Like it just exposes them to so many different like thought processes and different sports that they might not work with. And then for a coach, like having feedback from someone else that already is in the game, it cuts through a lot of the BS so that you can just, oh, I didn't understand that what I was trying to say was not getting across on the other side. And someone that has that experience is going to be able to give you that feedback. And again, it goes full circle to you talking about just getting the feedback, refining things, and then keep improving consistently over time. So that's awesome. It applies to coaching, it applies to athletics. So it's a perfect way to kind of put a bow on that stuff. Well, hey, coach, like any good training session, we got to end the show with a finisher. So I got 4 quarters, 4 questions, and maybe overtime for it, but we'll go rapid fire. But if there's anything that you want to expand on, feel free. But you ready for the first one?
Sure.
All right, first one I got for you. Biggest influence in the strength and conditioning profession and favorite athlete growing up.
All right. Biggest influence is Jonas Saracen. He's our men's basketball strength coach. And then a favorite athlete growing up was Shaquille O'Neal.
Okay, there you go. That's my birthday brother. That's a good one. Hey, so when you're not coaching, when you're not kind of working on the coaching business, like you're outside the weight room walls, what are some of kind of your go-to favorite hobbies to recharge?
Well, for sure, my family, my kid. I have two wonderful kids and an amazing wife. So uh, I try to be very, aware of my time when I'm outside of work and give as much as I can to them, especially while they're young and these years are really fun. Outside of that, if I had some free time, which typically do not, I really enjoy fishing and anything being outdoors as much as possible.
All right, there you go. I know early in the career, they were not sure if it was going to go the coaching route, but now you solidified yourself in the space. If you weren't coaching though, what do you think you might be doing as a profession right now if it was something different?
I probably would have become a cop or like work for government agents or something like that.
All right, all right. All right, setting up an ideal training day for yourself. What is playing like through the speakers, and what is your favorite all-time post-training meal?
Through the speakers. That's a really tough one because I am so annoyed with music most of the day. But I do like good old-fashioned AC/DC. And then post-training is w we have an awesome chicken place called Alpaca here. There, it's like a rotisserie chicken, so that's probably the easiest. Or another local place called Med Deli, and go get some gyros from there.
Okay, nice. All right, last one I got for you for overtime. Either first one that comes to mind or favorite under the bar or coaching memory that you have.
Mm. Ooh, that's tough.
It's hard to whittle it down
so
to one, I know.
yeah, you know, even though I had nothing to do with the wins or losses, one time when I was training women's lacrosse and men's lacrosse, we hosted two ACC championships in a weekend on campus, and we won them both. So, like, it was pretty cool. We won the women's lacrosse ACC championship, and we won the men's lacrosse ACC championship. They were both going on the same day. Was it the same day? It was within the same weekend because one was at the home field, one was in the football stadium because we couldn't play them both at the same time. So that was pretty cool. As far as like, just a cool day of like seeing it come to fruition for both of them. And then I gotta have a weight room. One of the coolest weight room ones is when we had David Ford, one of our golfers who ended up becoming like PGA Tour #1. When he first started on campus with us, his program was leg lifts and bodyweight squats. And then by his third year, he front squatted 185 for, I think it was a triple. And that was pretty cool, just to see kind of like that growth and yeah. So, a sport that typically doesn't go crazy about lifting. But that was pretty impressive. So there you go.
No, those are both awesome. Like obviously, especially in a sport too that is it's picking up a little bit when it comes to like athletic performance and training, but still it's one that's a little bit notorious for like just go out, hit the links a little bit more and you're gonna
Mhm.
be okay. But the ACC championship one is cool too. I had that and I'm mixing them all together like at Salisbury. Like women's lacrosse was a national championship game, and then the men were either playing the next day or that day in a completely different city. So I drove from Gettysburg to M&T Bank, like in Baltimore, to watch the guys play, and like I got like most of one game and most of another game, so I could try to be at both. And it was a fun day. It wasn't two wins. It wasn't two wins, but it was still cool to go see both of them. And anytime like we have homecoming campus games to get to go bounce around to all the teams, because I know you've got four and you've been involved in so many. It's such a cool thing on campus to be able to see everybody playing and how lively it is on campus. So definitely, definitely cool to still be surrounded by that stuff and see the athletes having success. So, well, Coach, it's been awesome talking to you. For anybody that's got follow-up questions that kind of want to reach out to you, maybe hop on the Athlete Within project and get some coaching from Coach Hernandez. Where can they follow you? Where can they kind of see your programming and everything and hop on board?
Uh, Probably just my Instagram is the easiest, at Hernandez Strength. Um, Start there, and then you can look at my email up pretty easily on goheels.com. I didn't list it out, but it's kind of wordy.
No worries. We'll link everything together. But I appreciate you coming on today. Hopefully, not too bad of a travel back to Illinois in that snowstorm for Christmas. But it's been awesome chatting with you today, Coach. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's it for this episode of The Strength Game. Thank you again to this week's guest and to our sponsors. Be sure to connect and keep up with our guests at the links in the description below. Remember to subscribe to us on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider to stay up to date on all future episodes. Also, check us out on YouTube and CoachO'Brien.com, where you can find all the video versions of these episodes, as well as show notes, episode schedule, and much more. Comments, ratings, and reviews are always welcome and appreciated. Thanks again for tuning in, and be sure to join us next week for another great episode of The Strength Game.